It is so good to be with you, and y'all have been so sweet to us already. When I told the folks around the house, my grandkids, hey guys, I'm going to a church in northern Alabama, and I'm going to sing. I thought they were going to fall out on the floor, because I do not sing in churches, okay? But when Dennis asked me, when John asked me, I'm going to call him Dennis.
Dr. Bain.
When Dr. Bain when Dennis asked me, what happened was really kind of transforming, because I said yes, like it was 45 years ago when Doug said, we're going down to this village, and Dennis said, we're going to sing, okay. And so even when you asked to sing that song, immediately I thought, okay, so how does it go? And every word came back to me. I could see Doug waiting to preach and Dennis strumming that guitar. And you're right, we did that all over South India. So you guys witnessed something that probably nobody else was going to witness. That's Harold King standing up in a church again and singing, but it was fun, Dennis. Dr. Bain. Now you've given me a time, and I'm respecting the time. I just want to lock in with the clock back there so that I'm staying with this. I want to start with saying some thank yous. And I want to start with you, Dr. Bain, Dennis, for reaching out to us. Oh my gosh, what a gift already you gave to us. And for letting me sing with you. Again, it was, if y'all noticed, I had to make myself look out here because I just wanted to look at you and remember, look at you, Doug, just like long ago. But thank you. We always knew in that September 45 years ago, if only 2 visas came in, I was the one that was going to be left back home. Because Doug could preach by himself and Dennis could do the music by himself. But I was, if it was baseball, I was the utility guy. Just put me in a position, you know. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you brought us back together all these years later. I'm still amazed that you were 18 years old. Y'all realize how young that is? We're helping to raise a 17-year-old granddaughter, and I think if she came and said next year, oh, by the way, Pop, and Hannah, that's what they call Diane, God's called me to go to India. We don't have any money yet. We don't know where we're staying yet, but I'm going with, and named them out. We would have said, oh, no, you're not. And yet here you are at 18 years old, and we were laughing about this and remembering last night. When I think of India, I see you playing with the children. I see you out there doing karate kicks with them and kicking a ball with them, playing chess with them, doing little magic tricks for them. And I see their smiles. And I am confident that these many years later, many of those children probably think back to when those Americans came, and they remember playing with you, Dennis. And anyway, and thank you for preserving photographs. You'll see Doug has a camera around his neck, and Dennis and Doug were smart enough to take a camera. I didn't have a camera, and you couldn't use your phone back then, you know. And so thank you for preserving these images. And I saw one of them you had of me, and I'm holding this little Bible. This is a little New Testament that I carried around even when I came up to sing. I brought it as my little security blanket. Okay, if I did it back then with this little Bible in my hand, I can do it again. I can do it. But anyway, so you brought us back together, not just the 3 of us, but now the 6 of us. And I'm so grateful. Now, Walnut Grove Baptist Church, thank you for your hospitality. Now, you didn't know what you were getting, probably, but here you are, and y'all have been so kind and so sweet. Thank you so very much. You provided us a place to stay, food to eat. Did y'all know you did that? But anyway, thank you so much for that. And then for Doug, I told him last night that I was going to say this, that I know that God took us to India. But Dennis and I know that if you hadn't have invited the 2 of us, we would have never had that adventure. So I love what you made possible for us. I wrote down that your courage, your vision, you're just, we're going to do this. God wants us to do this. Made that possible. And so here I am, 45 years later. I'm not 22 anymore. I'm 67. And there's not a day that goes by that I am not grateful to you. Now, along the way, you also took us to places that I didn't expect. We ran from a tornado in Virginia, okay? You made us go pitch a tent in a rainstorm outside of D.C. because we couldn't afford a hotel. You didn't make us. I experienced bed bugs for the first time. Thank you, Dennis. Doug. I experienced huge mosquitoes, anthills like this, amoeba dysentery. Does anybody know what that is? Look it up. You know, in this huge village that had not yet discovered toilet paper. Is it okay to say that in your church?
Don't say it in the pulpit.
So thank you, Doug, for all of those experiences too, but for countless opportunities to see God at work. And I reminded him last night, he taught me how to baptize in a pool in India that I use for the rest of my ministry. So, hey, you two, it was just an honor. And I laughed and cried and had such a good time with you last night. So thank you for that. Y'all okay with my thank you so far? You're saying I saw somebody wrap it up. No, I'm kidding. The people that know me back home, and I spent a lifetime now in Nashville, it seems, people back in Nashville that had worked with me through the years think of only two places when they think of my home, and that's Chicago, where my family was for 35 years, and Nashville, okay? Which is a little more impressive now that we have a Nashville TV show, right, you know? But Nashville and Chicago, what people didn't know is that I was born right down the road at the Coffee Memorial Hospital. I think it's called something else down in Florence, Alabama. So as a little boy, I always was proud to say I was from Alabama. My grandparents were raised right here in Decatur, Alabama. My relatives were here, I think, from the late 1800s in this area. And yesterday, Diane and I went out searching the old Decatur City Cemetery. Took me a while to find it. We found it, and we found the graves of my great-grandparents, the Hearst. We found the grave of my great-aunt Carrie and her husband, who was Tom Harrison, who, you know what I found out, was your mayor in 1940, 41, 42. We didn't have any money, but somehow he got elected. And I found the graves of my sweet grandmom and granddad. And so all I wanted to say about that is I kind of love being in Decatur and being close to where my roots are. Now, Doug, you told me I could share some lessons or what, so that's what I want to do. You feeling okay? Are you? In 1972, I was still somewhat of a marginal college student at Belmont. I'm going to call it university now. It was a college back then, but I had kind of been in school. I was even president of the sophomore class, but halfway through the year, Dean Kelly, who has signed your thing in your office, he gave me a choice. He said that he and the president had been talking. Would I like to just leave school, or would I like him to kick me out of school? And I said, I choose door number one. But I was still a bit of a marginal student. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I had heard of you already, Doug, about a Belmont student traveling and preaching and making an impact. But it wasn't until I was dragged to an evangelistic meeting at Vanderbilt University that I felt convicted. Grew up in church. I'm a preacher's kid. But I felt convicted of the love of God. And for the first time, I felt like I want to live my life for this God, for this Christ. And it is that night that opened the door that led me to even where I met Diane. We started working for a faith ministry, a Christian ministry, the way that Dennis mentioned, right on Music Row in Nashville. Before that was a cool place to go. Okay, I promise it wasn't cool in 1974, 72. A lot of transits, a lot of country music, wannabes, and we opened up a place to feed the people that had no food, to give lodging to people who were runaways or homeless. One night, a man slept at the foot of my bed, got up the next morning, he left. I found out that he had been traveling and living with the Charles Manson gang. Now, those of you who are too young to know about that, Google Charles Manson. And so that was our life. I was praying, though, to go somewhere around the world to tell people about Christ. We had this little prayer closet, and I would go in there, and I would pray every day. I felt God wanted me to go to Korea. And I felt like he wanted me to go, this is the funny part, with the Billy Graham ministry, okay? I set my sights kind of high. And I prayed, and I got everybody else to pray. And it was in that time that Doug, you sweet man, a gifted preacher, invited me to go to India. And I remember going back into that prayer closet and saying, God, I think you're telling me yes, but it won't be Korea, it will be India, and it won't be Billy Graham, but it'll be Doug Anderson. And I remember having the thought that day that, you know, I don't think I've ever heard a better preacher than Doug Anderson. And so you know what, God? That's close enough. And that's how it all started for me. So I want to share a few lessons that I was trying to learn back then that I am still trying to figure out as a 67-year-old. I remember us setting out with the sense that God had provided this open door for us. He provided the resources. Here we were, 18. It's a debate whether you were 20 or 21. I was 22. And here we're going to the other side of the world. And guys, that's when phones were big old boxy things with wires attached to walls. We had no way to communicate back. And yet here we were setting off to go to India. And as soon as I thought about that, I see us standing in large places and small places. I hear you singing, Dennis. I really don't hear myself singing. And I hear you preaching. And it seemed that you were tireless. And God was opening the doors. And we had prayed for the opportunities. And God had answered our prayers. And yet, I got to admit, I got homesick. I don't know how early it was in the trip, but I remember getting homesick. And so I thought about a passage I wanted to share with you, just a little passage. Do y'all remember ever hearing your preacher preach about or having a Sunday school class about the Macedonian call? Is anybody? You can pretend yes. Okay, the Macedonian call, because we love to preach about that. Because in Acts, we hear the writer of Acts telling about Paul being in Troas and then seeing this vision. And in this vision, he's being beckoned and called to Macedonia. And so the writer of Acts does a good job telling us about that story. But in Corinthians, we get Paul's version of that story. And I want to read to you what Paul said about it. Okay? It's Paul wrote, I put the Harold King paraphrase on. It didn't say so. It said, furthermore, when I came to Troas to preach the gospel of Christ, a door was opened unto me by the Lord. But I had no rest in my spirit because I couldn't find Titus, my brother. So I took leave of them, and I went from Troas to Macedonia. Now here's what I got from that. That even Paul, when he's seeing God at work in big ways, got a little homesick for his friend. And yes, God took him to Macedonia. I know he did. But at the same time, it was a reminder to me that even now, I want you to think about what God is doing in your life right now. And even if you know God is doing it, and he's in whatever it is that you're doing, don't beat yourself up so much if you get discouraged or you get tired. And because a lot of times, we're in a little bit of a hurry to move on to the next thing. So here's the lesson I wish I'd gotten way back then. Is that when God is working in your life and you see his hand upon whatever it is you're doing, don't be so quick to just rush to the next thing. It's okay to get homesick. It's okay to be discouraged. And it's even okay to go to the next place. I'm just saying in your heart, slow it down just a little bit. You know how many times I have wished I could have just 2 more days with you guys in India? And so that's my reminder. Don't you know that Jesus' disciples, every single day walking beside him, kept saying, okay, where's the next big miracle? When are we going to get to have that kingdom? When are we going to get to sit beside you, Jesus? And so my word to us today, how about it? Just slow it down a little bit. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is right now, just be with you. And I want to tell you, Troas is an okay place to see God open doors. Now, if you get a chance to go to a mission, or you get to go to India, I want to say, go, because it'll change your life. But if that opportunity doesn't come from you, it is okay. It's okay to look for the open doors right in your backyard. Okay? Everybody got that? Yep, got that. Now the second lesson I want to pass along is if you were to look in the 10th chapter of Luke, and you don't need to do that right now, but Jesus had sent out 72 Dennises, Dougs, and Harolds all across. That probably wasn't their name, right? Was there a Dennis or that could have been a Harold? That's an old name. But anyway, so he sent them out village to village ahead of him. And when they came back, they were so pumped. Have you ever been to a retreat or a mountaintop experience and you come back and you're really jazzed? And so this is what they said as soon as they got home from the mission trip. They said, Jesus, They said, Jesus, even the demons submitted to us in your name. So, to interpret that, they said, oh my gosh, we saw great things happen. We saw miracles happen. We saw all this stuff happen. Now, does anybody remember what Jesus said to them? I don't expect you to because you didn't prepare this to say, I had a head start on you. Jesus said, he wasn't in any way impatient with them. He said, I paraphrase, I saw Satan fall from the sky like lightning, and you have been given authority that if you were to step on that cobra that's outside of our place, or get in those bed bugs, those scorpions, that you'll be okay, you won't be harmed. But if you're going to rejoice in this, that your name is written down in heaven. So, I want to pass along to you that it really is a wonderful thing if you get to do something big and if you get to experience some unusual thing of God. But guys and ladies, just being a part of Him is really enough. You get that? Just being with Him is enough. Now, I want to tell you a story that's is an interesting story. You ready for this? So some years ago, I get a call late at night. Did you ever watch the Christie television show? Do y'all remember that? You watched the Christie television show. A few years ago, a movie came out called Amazing Grace. It was about Wilberforce. And did any of you see that? Okay. The man that created both of those is a friend of ours. And we met him, and he had come to town He was kind of like a big deal. He came to town, he calls me late at night. He sounded so much like you sometimes, Doug. Harold, what you doing? And I said, well, I'm about to go to bed. I got an idea for you. How would you like to meet me tomorrow at this big conference I'm in town for? The Vice President of the United States is going to be there. Tom Selleck is going to be. Y'all know who Tom Selleck is? Do y'all watch Blue Bloods? You don't have to let your pastor sit. But back then it was Magnum P.I. and all of that. And I want you to come too. I said, well, Ken, they're not going to let me go in there. And he said, oh, that's fine, but I need you to call this number. We need to run an FBI check on you because the Vice President's going to be there. So silly me, I say, okay, I'm trying to think of, all right, so what have I done that I don't want them to discover? But anyway, around midnight, I get the clearance. So they tell me where to meet them on the corner there in Nashville, Tennessee, and I show up and there are crowds everywhere, security to get in. And Ken tells me, Harold, I've got to be up on the platform with the Vice President, Jack Palance, head of the Screen Actors Guild, and the other people. He said, but as soon as it's over, you just run up to the stage. We're going to go out the back. We have to go to a luncheon at a hotel, and I want you to sit with me. And I'm saying, Ken, there is no way they're going to let me get close to you. Oh, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. So, sure enough, this big event goes on. At the end, I run down to the front. Secret Service everywhere. And I say, little short bald-headed guy, I'm supposed to be with them. And they look at me like, don't take another step. And so I said, but I'm really supposed to be with them. And, well, obviously they didn't let me through. And so Ken says, go outside, circle around, because there was going to be a parade, a big parade. I go outside. The rows are all, you know, the little yellow tape where it's not like a crime scene, but it felt like a crime scene. Hundreds and hundreds of people all out to see the celebrities and to see the Vice President of the United States. And so I come out and I tell this policeman, I can see the motorcade and I can see my friend and the Vice President, all those people, and Tom Selleck, you know. And so I can see him and I tell the policeman, I'm supposed to be with them. Now, I'm sure they thought I was a nut, okay? But somewhere along the way, Ken spots them. Spots me. He tells somebody on security, they radio over to this guy, and then I see the policeman, he's standing by me. Now, everybody's taller than me, you know that, right? So he looks down at me and says, him? And I said, I told you I was supposed to be with him. And so he raised the little thing, I go marching down the street, and I come up just in time for the Vice President to turn, Secret Service, Jack Palance, who I'd seen on television, my friend Ken Wells, and Tom Selleck, big handsome guy, you know, and I'm coming up. I come up to about here on him, and they look at me with not much of a glance, like, who is this guy? But I start walking along. The streets are lined with people. I mean, they're just everywhere, and they're craning to get to see these celebrities. And out of nowhere, somebody shouts out, Harold! Harold King! Hey, that's Harold! Across the street, 2 or 3 other people say, hey, it's Harold! Harold! 3 or 4 down that way. And I'm telling you, dozens of people all along. I mean, they're thick with people are shouting out, Harold, that's Harold. I start waving, and I'm waving, hey, hey. Well, by now, nobody's yelling to Tom Selleck or the Vice President, but I'm getting, hey, Harold Kings everywhere. And so I'm just walking along, and I can still see Tom Selleck this day striding along, and he looks down at me like, who is this guy? Because the parade is not for me, right? So we make our way into the hotel, the little back passage. We go to the luncheon. The luncheon all takes place. I'm sitting at their table. They're not really talking to me. But Ken speaks and Selleck speaks. Everybody speaks. Then they escort us back down the hallway, the narrow, and now we're coming out on an empty street. Nobody there. We get out on the street. As soon as we're there and they're about to go their separate ways and take off the celebrities, a siren sounds. I mean, like, really loud. And we look down here and there's a motorcycle cop. And he stands up on his motorcycle and he yells, Harold! Harold King! I am not lying to you. And well, that turned out to be Robbie McNairn, who's a good Christian brother at one of the local churches, and I grew up in high school with him, and he spotted me. Okay, everybody else, you probably guessed it, had left work that day and come over and filled the street. Well, there were 1,500 people that worked where Diane and I worked. They're brothers and sisters in Christ. We labor together for the Lord. We're just part of God's family. And so in that moment, they didn't care anymore about the vice president and Tom Selleck, Magnum P.I., the police chiefs from New York Blue Bloods. They cared because there was their little brother, Harold King. Now, I tell you that story. Sorry about that. I tell you that story because that's what Jesus was saying to them. Don't get so wrapped up in the big things and the big miracles. It is enough that you are in his family. And so when I look at that, the lesson is you may not see great miracles in your life. You may not be the Tom Selleck, or you may not write books and be a big preacher. And you may not be all of those lofty things. But you're a follower of the living God. Your name is written in heaven. And that's close enough. In Hebrews 12, the apostle tells us that we're supposed to run the race with perseverance because there's this great cloud of witnesses. You know, and they are cheering us on. And that's what I thought of that day. Oh my gosh. I'm getting all of this attention. Not for anything I've done, but just because I'm in their family. And oh, by the way, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Tom Selleck, all that you've done doesn't bring you the cheers of God's family. Doesn't mean it would, okay? Because they're good people, I'm sure. But, okay. So that's the second lesson. You may not get to go and see the big hand of God, the big miracles, but you know, folks, God is at work right now where you are. Okay, now this is going to be my last little lesson. And then, Doug, it's almost going to be your turn, and I'm looking forward to that. But I wanted to share this last thing, and I wish I had learned this with you, Dennis, and with you, Doug, those many, many years ago. I've been working on this the rest of my life. And that is to try to keep my faith from being so complicated. Keep it more simple. Don't get wrapped up thinking that it's the big and lofty things that make me noteworthy as a follower of Christ. But it's the everyday, ordinary things. Right after that passage of the 72 people coming back, okay, Jesus gets approached by someone and they ask him, okay, so what do you have to do to inherit eternity? And this was an expert of the law. He had studied the law. And Jesus' answer was real simple, and I bet some of you remember what his answer is. Or if I get you started, you'll remember it. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your soul, all of your strength, and to love me like yourself. Well, he said neighbor, but I just wanted you to know I'm your neighbor. To love you. To love the Harwells. Did I get the name right? And Chandra. And to love your neighbor as yourself. And so, just like us, that expert in the law wanted to have a further explanation. So he said, okay, so honestly, though, who's my neighbor? And Jesus then told the story of the Good Samaritan. Y'all remember the story? I don't need to tell you the story, right? The big aha, the big surprise in the story is twofold. One is that the Levite and the priest, the preacher types, crossed by on the other side. And the other is that the Samaritan, who you wouldn't have thought to do the right thing, is the one who helped the person and nursed the person back to health, got them lodging, and even left money for them. Now, one of the things that stuck with me all of my life from the India trip, and I didn't say this to you guys last night, but do you remember what the fruits of the Spirit are? This isn't a test, but we could probably throw out some of the words. You want to try?
Gentleness.
Thank you. Gentleness.
Love.
Love.
Joy.
Joy.
Peace.
Gentleness, goodness, faith.
Faith. Long-suffering. Yes.
Long-suffering.
You know what I learned in India? That some of those sweet, very poor people were more gentle and loving and kind and sweet than I was. And that has stuck with me for a lifetime. In recent years, Di and I have been married for 45 years this coming Christmas night. And there have been those seasons in our life where God has blessed us with our church. He's blessed us with our work. And I worked for Christian organizations my whole life. And yet, Diane said, okay, I won't put words in your mouth, but I don't think you like me very much. I remember once at a big family reunion, somebody overheard my son when they asked me to pray, said, why are they asking that hypocrite? I remember leading a class for a long, long time in First Baptist Church in Nashville. A lot of people there. Diane would talk about the children of one of the couples. And every time she would say, you know, Benjamin, the little one, I would think, so which one is that? I'm so embarrassed. Here I was their teacher, and I didn't know the name of their children. And somewhere along the way, some years ago, I felt convicted to stop preaching at the church I was preaching at and to take what I called a sabbatical of silence. Now, anybody who knows me knows I never stop talking. But what I meant was a sabbatical of silence from standing in pulpits and speaking until I could figure out how I could be a better guy, a better daddy, a better husband to Diane, in time a better grandfather, a better friend. I had a sister who attempted to take her life. I will say I have another sister, one of the most active in church, who did take her life. But this sister who attempted to take her life, and she's okay today, and in her church and loves her little church. But when I got called to travel to that intensive care, and she was comatose at the time, but when I got to her little apartment, what happened, I found a note that she had written. And the note was on a piece of paper like this. And it was her suicide note. She had been at church all morning, been out visiting on her bus ministry all afternoon, went to church again that night, and tried to take her own life before she went to bed. But what got me was at the top corner of this paper that she just picked up and wrote out the note was a picture of me. And when I found it, I thought, oh my gosh, how can my little sister be in such distress and look at me and not think to call me? And you know what I got convicted of as soon as that thought hit me? Heroin. But you never call her. And I didn't. I'm there in the big things, you see. But like the Levian priest, I just like crossed to the other side because I got to get to church in time. We start at 10:40, right? You get the point. I couldn't remember the children's name because I was brushing up really fast to work on that sermon just one more time before. Okay, so my time is about up. So let me wrap it up by saying, the story of the Good Samaritan began to convict me. So you know what I did? I started learning how to cook. I took more time with children. I've tried to be a better husband, a better friend to Diane. If somebody calls and says, hey Harold, I want to get us back together, would you come and sing? I think, yes, I want to do that. I'm going to be scared, and that's not my strong set of skills. But yes, because I want to be more like a Samaritan. Okay? And I wish I'd learned that a long time ago. If I were to ask you what's the most memorable thing that you have about Jesus, I bet you nobody says, oh man, I remember that sermon he gave. What you will remember are the pictures that you put up here. It's just when Jesus was with the children, when he healed the blind, when he went to the woman at the well. Isn't that right? It's those acts of kindness that show the love of God through him. And at this stage of my life, I'm just trying to do that better. And so, I want to tell the world that I'm a Christian. That hasn't changed for me at all. But I've been working really hard to do a better job of showing the world that I'm a Christian. Not because of all that I say, but because I'm trying to take time to be more like that Samaritan. So, as I close my part, am I good on time, Dennis? Did I do okay? Okay. So as I close my part, I've been asked, we retired a year ago, and I was asked what we were going to do. And I had these things that seemed so meaningful. I felt like I knew what God was leading me to do. But you know how it was going to start? Ready for something surprising? Diane and I were going to get on a plane, fly to Paris, take a train down to a little town called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, the foot of the Pyrenees, and we were going to walk the Camino de Santiago, 500 miles. We were going to unplug. It was a pilgrimage people have been doing for 1,200 years. And we were going to walk 15 to 18 miles a day, if we can. And we were just going to be still together. And then my mother grew ill. The week we're retiring. And so for the next 7 or 8 months, we didn't walk across Spain. We sat with her and cared for her and loved her, spent time with her, trying to be, oh, please help me be better at it, a Samaritan to Mom until she died. And then 2 weeks later, our uncle, a similar situation. And so all I would say by that is caring for someone you love, working with the children, loving the one that you're with is a beautiful way to tell the world that you're a Christian. You don't have to stand up here and do this. If you get to go to India, go. If you get to go to Haiti, go. But if you get to go to Macedonia, go. But in the meantime, you can look for the open doors of ministry right here in your Troas. And so, thank you for this time. I hope I didn't abuse the time if I read that correctly. Thank you so much.